Have you ever felt like your life is stuck? Like there's something inside you screaming for change, but you just don't know where to start? What if I told you there's a man who took every bad thing he went through, abuse, racism, extreme poverty, failure, and turned it into fuel to become one of the mentally toughest men on the planet? That man is David Goggins. And what did he do? He didn't just become a Navy SEAL, one of the most elite soldiers in the world. He also ran ultramarathons, broke world records, and wrote a book that's not just a read. It's an emotional and motivational punch in the gut. In today's compact wisdom video, we're diving deep into Can't Hurt Me, the book where Goggins shows you how to turn pain into power. There's no magic formula here, no empty motivation. Just discipline, sweat, blood, and a mindset so sharp it can cut through any excuse. Stick with me until the end, because you'll walk away with real tools to shift your mindset. You'll understand how to unlock the 60% of your potential that you didn't even know existed. And I'm telling you now, the value in today's content is gold, and some concepts won't click until later. So stay tuned, because the breakthrough you're looking for might hit at any moment. Let's go. Part 1. The hell that shaped Goggins. Most of the people we admire for their accomplishments have a background of hard work, but David Goggins' story goes beyond that. His past is a raw portrait of pain. He was born in 1975 in Buffalo, New York. From a young age, Goggins lived in a hostile environment. His father, Toughness Goggins, owned a skating rink and a nightclub. It looked like a normal life from the outside. But inside their home, it was a battlefield. Toughness was violent and controlling, and he brutally beat his wife and children. By the age of 6, David was working at his father's rink late into the night while enduring abuse and exploitation. A childhood meant for playing and learning became a daily fight for survival. This insane routine lasted until David's mother decided to escape. They fled in the middle of the night, literally. And while escaping was a form of liberation, it brought a new wave of challenges: poverty, racial discrimination in a new town, and deep psychological trauma. David struggled with severe learning difficulties, which were later diagnosed as dyslexia. He was one of the only black kids at a predominantly white school in Indiana, and the racism was brutal. Death threats in the mail. Racial slurs scrawled on bathroom walls. And he swallowed all of it in silence, crushed by an invisible internal weight. On top of that, he suffered from extreme insecurity, low self-esteem, and growing obesity. By his teenage years, he weighed around 300 pounds. His diet was terrible, his emotions were numb, and he felt completely disconnected from himself. He describes this time as a period of invisibility, not just to others, but to himself. He didn't recognize himself. He didn't respect himself. And here comes the turning point. Not a big revelation. Not some magical insight. Just a brutal, honest realization. Goggins understood that no one was coming to save him. No one was going to pull him out of that hole. The world didn't care about his pain. And he had two choices: stay stuck where he was, or face his demons. This is the first big lesson in the book. You need to look in the mirror and tell yourself the truth. Goggins calls it callousing the mind, building mental calluses. Just like hands get tougher with time and friction, the mind can be conditioned to handle pressure. But that only happens through facing discomfort, not avoiding it. He started exposing himself deliberately to hard things. Not massive changes all at once, but small, consistent daily commitments. He couldn't do 10 push-ups. So he did 5, stopped, rested, and tried again. His diet was trash. He changed one plate at a time. Struggled in school. He reread the same paragraph 10 times if he had to. That was the beginning of mental reprogramming. But before any reprogramming, he did a personal inventory. A list of everything that made him feel like a failure. He stuck that list on the bathroom mirror. Every day he faced it. Weaknesses, limitations, painful truths. That became what he called the accountability mirror. There, in those quiet mornings, staring at his own sweaty face, he made promises to himself. Small ones. Like, today I won't skip school. Or today I'll run 1 mile. At the end of the day, he would cross them off or post a new note with the next goal. That bathroom turned into a kind of sanctuary, of pain and of hope. This process of facing who he was and taking responsibility for change was the spark that ignited everything that came next. Nothing mystical. Nothing magical. Just pain and choice. He didn't have support. He didn't have structure. He didn't have external motivation. What he developed was brutal self-honesty. And here's the first practical lesson you can apply today. Yellow Circle Exercise 1. Create your accountability mirror. Grab a sticky note. Write down one of your weaknesses, something you've been avoiding. Stick it on your bedroom or bathroom mirror. Look at it every day. And take one small step to change it. One action a day. Every time you overcome it, add a new note. Do this for 30 days. Your brain will start to understand that pain doesn't kill you. Growth is possible, but only when you face what hurts. This is part 1. The rock bottom, but also the ignition point. David Goggins didn't start out as a hero. He started as a broken kid with a dark past, and still chose not to be a prisoner of his story. Part 2. The 40% rule. When you think you're done, you're just getting started. You know that moment when you're exhausted, dripping in sweat, gasping for air, and your mind screams, "I can't go on." David Goggins says, that's exactly when you're only at 40% of what you're truly capable of. This isn't a metaphor. It's a principle he learned the hard way, and repeated so many times that it became a mental mantra. The body wants to stop. The mind wants to quit. But the truth is, you still have 60% of energy, grit, and resilience left. You just don't know how to tap into it. Let's break down how this concept came to life. After he started putting his life back on track with the post-it notes on the mirror, Goggins decided to do something unthinkable: become a Navy SEAL. But there was a massive problem. He weighed 300 pounds, 135 kilograms, was completely out of shape, and had to lose over 100 pounds, 45 kilograms, in 3 months to qualify. 3 months. Think about that. It's almost half a kilo per day. An absurd goal. But not only did he succeed, he also survived Hell Week, the most brutal part of Navy SEAL training, where recruits sleep 2 to 4 hours a week, are pushed physically to the edge, and mentally to the point of collapse. And it was in this process that he realized, every time his body said, "I'm done," he found a way to keep going. That pattern repeated itself in everything. In training, in studying, in physical exams, and in personal challenges. The mind, by nature, is wired to protect us. It looks for comfort, energy conservation, and safety. So when things get tough, it sets off an alarm: stop. But that alarm doesn't mean you're done. It means you've entered the real growth zone. According to Goggins, most people live and die without ever accessing what they're truly capable of, because they stop at 40%. Because they believe the alarm instead of testing their limits. Maybe the clearest example of the 40% rule in the book is Goggins' first ultramarathon. The San Diego One Day, a 100-mile, 160 kilometers, run around a 400-meter track for 24 hours straight. Here's the craziest detail. He wasn't prepared. 0 long-distance running training. He just showed up to qualify for another race, the Badwater 135, and thought brute strength would be enough. But it wasn't just about strength. It was about mental brutality. In the last 20 miles, Goggins had a fractured shin, was urinating blood, had uncontrollable diarrhea, and his feet were raw. And still, he finished. In anyone's mind, he had every reason to stop. But he tapped into those hidden 60%, and discovered he could keep going even when his body was falling apart. Goggins realized the key was breaking the self-sabotage cycle. He didn't rely on fleeting motivation. He used discipline. He used controlled anger. He drew from an inner force that came from one decision: never again be that obese, defeated, invisible guy. And you can apply this right now. Here's what he suggests. When you feel like quitting, whether it's training, studying, or working, pause and say, "I'm only at 40%. Breathe. Acknowledge it's your brain trying to protect you. Then push a little further. Just one more. One more kilometer. One more paragraph. One more minute." That simple shift unlocks potential you didn't even know was there. The mind doesn't work like a switch you flip to access 100% power. Goggins teaches that you have to train your mind, just like a muscle. Start small. A running and want to stop? Run for 2 more minutes. A want to quit your project? Work on it for 10 more minutes. A ready to leave the gym? Do 1 more set. That little bit more is the gateway to your hidden 60%. It's in that margin where your mind starts learning it's no longer in charge. You are. He developed a mental mode called Goggins mode, almost like triggering an alter ego when pain strikes. He talks to himself out loud, reminds himself of everything he's already overcome, and goes to war with his own limits. It's like saying, "All right, pain, you showed up. But so did I. Let's see who wins today." And that's a mindset you can adopt. Literally. Talk to yourself. Remember your past victories. Take the lead. Practical application Yellow Circle Exercise 2. The 40% test. Pick an activity you do regularly. Running, reading, studying, working out. When you feel like you've hit your limit, stop and say, "I'm only at 40%. Then, push 10% further. Just 5 more minutes. 1 more rep. 1 more page. Do this for 7 days straight. Then write down what happened. How did you feel? What were your actual limits? And which ones were mental? The 40% rule isn't about becoming superhuman. It's about realizing that discomfort doesn't mean failure. In fact, discomfort is proof you've finally reached the place where growth begins. Goggins shows us that pain isn't a sign of weakness. It's an invitation to reveal your strength. And that strength only appears when you refuse to stop. Part 3. Pain is the way. After facing the mirror and realizing he had much more to give beyond the 40%, David Goggins began to see pain through a different lens. And that's when everything really started to change. He stopped running from pain and started running straight toward it. Literally. Goggins understands that pain is where most people stop, and precisely because of that, it's where you can stand out. While the rest of the world searches for shortcuts, comfort, and distraction, he asks himself, what will happen if I hang in there a little longer? And this isn't just a nice idea. It's practice. Real. Raw. Intense. Pain became a tool for transformation. Every time he exposed himself to discomfort, he was training his mind to endure more. Like a soldier who gets colder and more focused on the battlefield. You don't learn resilience through theory. You learn it by showing up. That's how he started running ultramarathons, even though he hated running. He never liked it. But he realized that running was the perfect kind of pain, constant, lonely, mentally exhausting, and it forced him to meet himself on a deeper level. Suffering became a sharper mirror than any post-it note. Because there's no hiding from yourself when you're running 100 miles in silence, bleeding through your shoes. In one of these challenges, Goggins went through the infamous Hell Week for the 3rd time. For those who don't know, it's a week where SEAL candidates are woken up with gas grenades, sleep barely 2 hours a night, get submerged in freezing water, and are pushed beyond physical and mental exhaustion. It's brutal. And he had already done it twice. But this time, something was different. Not because it got easier. It didn't. His knees were wrecked, and he had infections all over his body. The difference was that now, he knew pain was part of the deal. He didn't complain. He didn't resist. He accepted it, and walked side by side with it. That's one of the biggest mindset shifts in the book. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your instructor. It will teach you things about yourself that comfort never could. It reveals what you can truly endure. And more than that, it strengthens your sense of identity. Because pain strips away all your masks. When you're sweating, shaking, bleeding, there's no pretending. And if you keep going, even then, you start to see yourself through new eyes. The problem is, most people avoid discomfort at all costs. They avoid tough workouts, difficult conversations, hard studying, silence. They live numb. And the price for that? Never truly knowing who they are. Because your best version is on the other side of the pain you keep dodging. Goggins started chasing pain almost obsessively. But not because he liked suffering. He did it because he knew that's where growth happens. In a world that's always getting faster, easier, and more convenient, he chose the opposite. A path of solitude, discipline, effort, and quiet focus. And here's another key: pain, when faced with purpose, creates focus. Goggins says that in moments of extreme pain, everything that doesn't matter disappears. The useless thoughts, the distractions, the fake fears, they all fade. All that's left is you and what's real. It's almost meditative. You stop thinking and start simply continuing. One step at a time. One breath at a time. One decision at a time. To not stop, even when everything in you screams to quit. That focus became the foundation for everything he built. And he realized it can be trained. Every time he ran without wanting to, every time he woke up early, every time he said yes to discomfort, he was, in practice, getting mentally stronger, more emotionally resilient, clearer about who he really was. There's no miracle here. Just repetition. Just daily exposure to what's hard. And this isn't about destroying yourself, it's about forging yourself. Goggins believes we all have a mind that can be calloused. But like a muscle, it needs tension to grow. And maybe the most powerful part of this philosophy is this: suffering is not something you eliminate, it's something you manage. Pain won't disappear, but your relationship with it can change completely. You can learn to use it as an ally. He says, you need to build a relationship with pain, because it's going to be with you for the rest of your life. And if that's the case, why not learn to talk to it? So the big shift is not to stop feeling, but to stop resisting. To look pain in the eye and say, okay, you're here. Let's walk together. And that changes everything. If Goggins once saw pain as punishment, now he sees it as a sign of progress. It's the indicator that he's moving in the right direction. And the more it hurts, the more he knows he's hitting parts of himself that others are too afraid to touch. That's the secret of real growth. Understanding that pain is not something you avoid, it's something you integrate. And you don't need to run 100 miles to apply this. Start small. Choose one uncomfortable challenge. Wake up an hour earlier. Push through a hard workout. Sit with yourself in silence for 30 minutes. And don't just do it once. Do it every day. Until your mind learns that pain is not the end, it's the beginning. At the end of the day, Goggins discovered that there's no shortcut to becoming who you want to be. There's pain. There's effort. And there's a daily decision to keep going, even when nothing in you wants to. And believe me, that's when you become unstoppable. Part 4. The practical challenges of the book. One thing that sets Can't Hurt Me apart from any other personal development book is that it doesn't end when the story ends. It keeps pushing you. With every chapter, Goggins presents a challenge. And these aren't suggestions, they're invitations for you to step into the ring with your own limits. The first one, and perhaps the most symbolic, is the accountability mirror. We've talked about it back at the beginning, but here it takes on a new weight. It's not just about listing weaknesses. It's about putting those painful truths right in front of your face, every single day. See them. Read them. Own them. That thing you've been avoiding. That truth you pretend doesn't exist. Goggins says, everybody wants to get better, but few want to admit where they're falling short. And without that brutal honesty, there is no transformation. So, the first challenge is this: write down everything you hate about yourself. Everything you've been neglecting. Everything that's holding you back. Stick that list on your mirror. Look at it every day. And make one small promise at a time. Today, I'm going to study for 30 minutes. Today, I'm going to run. Today, I won't run from discomfort. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. The second challenge is the cookie jar, and this concept is as simple as it is brilliant. Every time you overcome something difficult, you store that memory. Literally. Write it down or save it mentally. It could be something small, like pushing through laziness, or something big, like passing a hard test. Why does this matter? Because when the pain hits, and it will, you'll need mental ammunition. You'll need to remind yourself of everything you've already conquered. Goggins used this during his 100-mile races. When his body screamed, "Done," he would dip into this mental jar, pull out memories of past victories, and remind himself, if I did that, I can do this too. Another challenge is the lessons learned journal. Goggins wrote everything down: what he felt, where he failed, what worked, what needed improvement. And it wasn't just venting. It was strategy. He used the journal as a tool for personal observation. Because without that kind of analysis, you repeat your patterns without noticing. By writing it all out, he could see exactly where he was sabotaging himself, and course correct. His approach is simple. You are your own experiment. Every day is a test. And your journal is the logbook. Not for judgment, but for understanding. I failed today. Okay, why? Did you sleep poorly? Eat badly? Get distracted? Were you exhausted? Learn. Adjust. Try again. Another powerful challenge he proposes is what he calls the gradual pain scale. In short, expose yourself to discomfort daily. Smartly. You're not going from the couch to Navy SEAL overnight. But you are getting off the couch. You get up. You run 1 kilometer. Tomorrow, 1.5. Then 2. Keep increasing. Not just physically, mentally too. You start training your brain to understand that you're in charge. Not laziness, not your comfort zone, not your anxiety. And this type of challenge creates transformation because it doesn't depend on talent. It depends on decision. Every day, a small dose of discomfort. And over time, you'll notice, you're getting stronger. Not just in your body, in your mind. Now here comes one of the most powerful exercises in the book, the what if challenge. What if I can? What if I make it? What if I'm more than I believe I am? This exercise breaks the identity you've been clinging to. Goggins says we spend our lives accepting limited versions of ourselves, based on what others told us or based on what we've experienced. But those versions are incomplete, not final. And what if is the doorway out of that identity trap. He writes in his notebook, what if I'm the most determined man in my city? What if I become one of the best athletes in the country? What if I break a world record? And you can do the same. What if I pass that exam? What if I learn that instrument? What if I succeed in business? It's a simple question, but it shifts your focus from fear to potential. All these challenges are calls to action. It doesn't matter where you are now. It matters where you decide to go. And these steps, even the small ones, are the start of real movement. Goggins says, people want shortcuts, but I offer resistance. And that's the point. Life won't hand you anything for free. But if you build a strong, disciplined, consistent mindset, you can achieve anything. Because the world bends for those who refuse to quit. So here's the bottom line of this section. Challenge yourself every single day. In the mirror. In your workouts. In your discipline. In your notebook. In the questions you ask yourself. Will the pain show up? Absolutely. Will the urge to quit knock on your door? Without a doubt. But when it does, you'll know exactly what to do. You'll look at everything you've already overcome. You'll remember the person you're becoming. And you'll take one more step. Because, as Goggins himself says, you don't need to be extraordinary to start. But you do need to start in order to become extraordinary. Part 5. Breaking records with blood and rage. Up to this point, we've seen how Goggins built a solid mental foundation. He faced his traumas, created an accountability mirror, tapped into the hidden 60% of his strength, and started seeing pain not as an obstacle but as the path itself. But none of that would matter if it stayed only in theory. He wanted to test it all. He wanted to push his body to the extreme to see just how far his mind could carry him. That's when he dove headfirst into ultramarathons. If you've never heard of them, these are races longer than 42 kilometers, and many go up to 100, 135, even 240 kilometers. They are brutal tests where both physical and mental limits are destroyed and rebuilt with every mile. And Goggins didn't ease his way into that world. He kicked the door down. In 2005, he signed up for the San Diego One Day, a 24-hour race on a 400-meter loop. The goal: run 100 miles, 160 kilometers, even though he had never run more than 20 kilometers in his life. Yes, you read that right. He wasn't a runner. He wasn't prepared. But he was determined. And with that determination, he started running in circles, in a nearly hypnotic loop. But his body started to break down much earlier than expected. By mile 70, his feet were completely raw. His legs felt shattered. He was peeing blood, vomiting, uncontrollable diarrhea, blood in his stool, kidney pain, and there were still 30 miles to go. Anyone, literally anyone, would have quit. No one would have blamed him. It was dangerous. It was insane. It was human. But Goggins didn't stop. He dragged himself to the finish line, vomiting, limping, biting his lip, holding back tears, collapsing on the pavement. And he completed the 100 miles. Why? Because that was the moment he realized everything he'd trained mentally was real. He saw that he could endure the unbearable. He felt in his own flesh that a disciplined mind is more powerful than any pain. And that was just the beginning. From then on, he became an ultra-endurance machine. He competed in the Badwater 135, known as the hardest race in the world, 217 kilometers through Death Valley, where temperatures soar past 50 degrees Celsius. And it wasn't just about finishing. It was about challenging every single second. He ran with blisters the size of coins, skin rubbed raw, muscle spasms, and still he kept going. He would say to himself, "You can't hurt me." It was as if his mind had become so strong that his body could no longer control him. Pain would knock, but it wouldn't get in. He had already made peace with it. He had become its companion. That mindset led him to another challenge, the Guinness World Record for pull-ups. The goal was to complete the most pull-ups in 24 hours. Sounds simple, right? But it's one of the most brutal endurance feats out there. He tried the first time, and failed. His fingers were torn up, hands bleeding, mentally shattered. The media laughed. Haters mocked. But he tried again, and failed again. And then he came back a third time. Prepared. Precise. With fire in his eyes and discipline in his soul. And he broke the record. He completed 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours, with his hands literally destroyed, wrapped in duct tape, blood dripping. But what hurt more? The bar? Or the ego from the failed attempts? Probably neither. Because Goggins had a bigger goal, proving to himself that he could overcome anything if his mind was in the right place. What lies behind this isn't about running 100 miles or setting records. It's about coming back after failure. It's about reworking the plan, starting again with humility, and staying focused on the purpose. It's about understanding that failure is not the end. It's part of the process. Goggins shows that it doesn't matter how many times you fail. What matters is how many times you come back, and with what mindset you come back. That's the difference. Most people try once, fail, and stop. But not him. He failed, suffered, analyzed, adjusted, and tried again. Everything he achieved, from the insane races to the world records, didn't happen because he was special. It happened because he was disciplined, obsessed, unbreakable. And that's the message he hammers into our heads. You don't need talent. You need persistence. You don't need to be the strongest. You need to be the most determined. You don't need to avoid pain. You need to accept it as part of the journey. The body will fail. The mind will want to quit. Others will doubt you. But you decide whether you keep going or not. You choose whether pain will be your excuse or your fuel. Goggins chose to keep going. What about you? Part 6. A Mind Bulletproofed by Pain. David Goggins wasn't born with a strong mind. His was built, brick by brick, through pain, discipline, and deliberate confrontation. One of the most powerful truths in his book is exactly this. The mind is trainable. When we think about mentally tough people, we often picture someone who's naturally confident, unshakable, mentally solid from day one. With Goggins, it was the opposite. He started out completely broken, insecure, afraid of everything. unable to even look himself in the mirror. And yet, he built such a strong internal structure that, over time, he became known as the hardest man alive. Not because of physical strength, but because of mental strength. The mind, he says, works like any other muscle. To grow, it needs stress. It needs resistance. It needs to be pushed beyond comfort. And that's precisely what most people avoid. They want to be mentally tough without facing situations that demand mental toughness. They want peace without going through chaos. Confidence without ever dealing with doubt. Resilience without pain. Goggins says that the mind is forged through micro-decisions made every day. Waking up when the alarm goes off without hitting snooze. Training even when you don't feel like it. Studying when you're tired. Saying no to temptation. Saying yes to discomfort. Each of these small choices, seemingly insignificant, is a vote toward mental strength. That's how he trained his own mind, by confronting what was uncomfortable, painful, or shameful. It was as if each day he was adding a new layer of psychological armor. But more than resilience, Goggins developed what he calls emotional immunity. Meaning, no matter what people say, think, or do to you, if your mind is solid, none of it can break you. You don't feed off external validation. You don't need other people's approval to feel worthy. You've built an inner foundation so deep that no outside storm can drag you down. And that kind of mindset starts with something brutally simple. Honest self-awareness. Goggins talked to himself constantly. Literally. While running, training, studying. He was always having a conversation with his mind. And it wasn't gentle. It was raw, direct. You're running away. You're sabotaging yourself. You're being lazy. Get up. Face it. Do it right. This ongoing self-dialogue became a routine. It was like having a relentless internal coach, one who never accepted excuses, but also believed deeply in his potential. And that's key. Goggins didn't treat himself with pity. He treated himself with respect. And that changed everything. His mind became bomb-proof. Not because he stopped feeling. He still felt pain, anger, fear, insecurity. But he learned not to be ruled by those feelings. He let them pass, like clouds in the sky. He didn't deny them, but he didn't obey them either. During the most brutal races, when his body was failing, he would switch into what he called going to the dark side. A mental state where he fully embraced the suffering and told himself, I'm ready to die here. But I won't stop. And it wasn't just a metaphor. In many of those races, he genuinely risked his life. But it wasn't for glory or applause. It was a personal experiment. A test. He wanted to know, how far can the human spirit go when the mind is aligned with purpose? That made him into a symbol of extreme resilience. Thousands of people began messaging him every day. You changed my life. I started training because of you. I lost 60 pounds using your method. And do you know what he replied? Nothing. Because Goggins doesn't do it for applause. He doesn't want to be a guru. He doesn't want your admiration. He wants your action. He wants you to stop idolizing and start confronting. To do for yourself what he did for himself. That comes from a deep place. He knows that pain is solitary. No one can do your inner work for you. At the end of the day, either you build a strong mind, or you get dominated by a weak one. And the problem with a weak mind is that it disguises itself well. It justifies. It rationalizes. It creates sophisticated excuses. But Goggins learned to spot the pattern. Every time his mind tried to convince him to stop, he said, not today. He became the observer of his own weakness. He didn't deny it was there. But he didn't hand it the controls. That, to me, is emotional maturity at its highest. To apply this in your own life, you don't have to do anything heroic. You just have to start listening to your own thoughts. You need to recognize when you're tired for real, and when it's just mental laziness. You need to train that internal awareness. And then, make the conscious choice to keep going. This bomb-proof mindset isn't built in a month. But it can be built. With repeated decisions. With courage. with honesty. In the end, Goggins doesn't want you to become him. He wants you to find out who you really are, once your mind stops lying to you. And that, my friend, changes everything. Part 7. How to apply this in real life after everything you've seen so far. The traumatic childhood, the creation of the accountability mirror, the 40% rule, the friendship with pain, the brutal records, the bulletproof mind. You might be thinking, okay, Goggins is a beast, but how do I actually apply this to my normal life? That's a fair question. And Goggins knows it. That's why he keeps emphasizing one thing. He is not special. He wasn't born strong. He wasn't born brave. He wasn't born disciplined. He built that, brick by brick, day by day. And according to him, anyone can do the same. But to do it, you have to be willing to trade comfort for truth. You can't apply Goggins' philosophy and keep clinging to the same old excuses. You can't grow and remain the same. You're going to have to break up with your current self. You're going to have to confront who you are, and yes, it will hurt. So how do you apply all of this? Step 1. Brutal honesty. Before taking any action, you need to look at who you are, for real. Where are you failing? Where are you sabotaging yourself? Where are you hiding behind distractions, food, social media, oversleeping, excuses? If you don't have the courage to face this, you'll keep spinning in circles. Grab a pen and paper. Take inventory of yourself. Goggins calls it a truth audit. A personal audit. No drama. No victimhood. Just facts. How much time do you waste each day? What do you say you'll do but never start? What do you keep postponing? That's your starting point. Step 2. Deliberate discomfort. You don't need to run ultramarathons. But you do need to expose yourself to challenge. Afraid of public speaking? Start by recording videos alone. Struggling to study? Add 15 more minutes a day. Out of shape? Walk 2 kilometers daily. Start small. What matters is training your mind not to run from tension. Because that's where growth begins. Create daily challenges. Write them on your mirror. Set weekly goals. Step out of your comfort zone every day, even if just for a few minutes. That alone will start changing the way your mind responds to the world. Step 3. Documentation. Write it down. Every day. What you did. What you didn't. What you learned. What you messed up. What needs improvement. Sounds simple, but it's powerful. Because without clarity, you just react to life. A journal builds awareness. And awareness builds responsibility. Goggins didn't trust his memory. He trusted his records. He wrote everything down. Workouts, emotions, thoughts. Almost like a scientific process. And that process helped him align who he was with who he wanted to become. Step 4. Revisit your wins. The cookie jar isn't just a cool metaphor, it's a real mental tool. On hard days, when motivation's low, you pull a memory from the jar. I've gotten off the couch before. I've been through worse. I've pushed through before. Each win becomes proof that you're stronger than you think. Keep those memories close. Use them. They build your internal confidence. Step 5. Rewrite your internal dialogue. If you spend all day mentally insulting yourself, doubting yourself, tearing yourself down, there's no way to thrive. Yes, Goggins was hard on himself. But he was also respectful. He pushed himself, but he didn't destroy himself. He spoke like a coach, tough, but focused on growth. So start noticing how you talk to yourself. Stop calling yourself lazy, dumb, weak. Start treating yourself like someone who's evolving. Correct without humiliation. Encourage without lying. Speak truth, but with purpose. That changes everything. Step 6. Accept that it will hurt. This might be the hardest part. We're conditioned to think discomfort means something is wrong. But Goggins teaches the opposite. Discomfort means something is changing. If it hurts, it's because you're growing. Pain will be part of the process. Mental, physical, emotional. Accept it. Don't fight it. Walk with it. Turn pain into a rite of passage. And when it hits, instead of running away, ask, what is this trying to teach me? Step 7. Consistency. This might be the biggest game changer of all. None of this matters if you only do it for 3 days. The mind changes through repetition, through steady effort, through daily commitment. Goggins says, when you do something even when you don't feel like it, that's when you separate yourself. That's exactly it. Consistency is what separates the dreamers from the doers. And finally, a crucial reminder. You don't have to become Goggins. You just have to become the fullest version of you. The most resilient, the most disciplined, the most present, the most real. And that's not some distant goal. It starts now. With your next decision, your next step, your next workout, your next book, your next yes to what builds you, and your next no to what breaks you. Because at the end of the day, what Goggins teaches is simple. A weak mind looks for excuses. A strong mind creates results. And the choice of which mind you feed is yours. And with that, we close this full journey through Can't Hurt Me. If you made it this far, congratulations. Seriously. You didn't just consume content. You faced a philosophy that challenges you, provokes you, pushes you. Now, the ball is in your court. But before we wrap up, David Goggins shows us that limits are not physical, they're mental. That you don't need talent to be extraordinary, you need courage. Courage to face the truth. Courage to repeat the effort. Courage to embrace the pain. And if you want to go deeper into this story, I highly recommend reading the full book. The affiliate link is in the description. It supports the Compact Wisdom channel and gives you access to even more powerful insights that couldn't fit in a 1-hour video. Now tell me in the comments. Backhand index pointing right, what was the biggest insight you got from this summary? Backhand index pointing right, which Goggins challenge are you going to start applying today? And of course, if this video had any impact on you, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Someone who's about to give up. Someone who's stuck. Someone who needs to wake up. Here at Compact Wisdom, we don't just bring summaries. We bring breakthroughs. See you in the next video. And until then, stay hard.